today's cup of coffee. Now, this one's a little bit lengthy, but it's actually well written, and we need the background on it. You can't just take bits and pieces because we have viewers of varying and sundry ages. So if you don't explain parts of it, they're going to be going, what the hell's going on? For those of us who lived through this shit, we're still going, what the hell was going on?
What the fuck?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
It really
What
was.
the fuck?
We have found out that that's what chickens are actually saying.
What the fuck?
This comes from Grunge and was by Brian.
We've been using a lot of stuff from Grunge lately.
Yes, because I try to find different sources, and if Mysterious Universe is rehashing the same old thing, then I have to, go out. And even as far as Grunge, some of these places, if they've got... some of them have references that are pretty good. Mm-hmm. And then what I will do is go back and take from the original reference, because why would I not?
Yeah.
So, anyhow, Grunge by Brian Myers. This was June 25th of 2022. A link will be in the description box. Links, because this one, then I've got a follow-up article. And the article is entitled, The Dungeons and Dragons Panic of the 1980s Explained.
God. Tell me about that,
and
please. Because I don't know anything about that.
Oh, this was part of, the whole... It went into with the satanic panic bullshit. So I'm going to try to remain focused. I did forget to take my Stratera
This is
today.
why I wish we had face cams, because I wish they could just see me. I wish they could see my fucking face, because this is such...
They're making the same face.
Let me tell you something. The satanic panic was nothing but bullshit. I'm going to flat out say that. It was bullshit. Still is bullshit. And I'm not afraid to fucking say that.
I lived it.
I know you did, and you know it's bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. It was.
It's like the fucking Catholic Church.
It's not. It wasn't.
The Catholic Church being like, no, it's not. It's not the whole Catholic Church. It was the Catholic Church being like, save your child from being a goth.
No. Well, they may have done that, but you're getting ahead of yourself on this stuff. It was not the Catholic Church that started this. It was a bunch of Protestants, and we actually, it does tell about all that in the article here. So, yeah. It wasn't the Catholics.
No, I didn't say it was the Catholics that started that. I said it went along with that.
Right.
The Catholic Church starting... It was a specific Catholic Church. It wasn't all Catholic Church. It was a specific one that put out a thing that was like, save your child from being a goth. And they did the fucking... They didn't even say it right. It was Count Chocula. They said Count Dracula... cereal. It was Count Chocula, you dumb fucks.
But that all goes in with this. It
Shopping
does.
at Hot Topic, man.
Anyhow.
Listen to Marilyn Manson. I'm
Topic
going to
used
listen
to
to
be
Marilyn
good.
Manson all I want.
Kid is triggered, and I haven't even got through the first sentence.
I am triggered, because that
My
shit
God,
does upset me.
Seriously, it's one of those, I have read the title, and that's it. Anyhow, Myers writes, fans of Stranger Things will have noticed that several of the show's most beloved characters are in the throes of an intense Dungeons & Dragons campaign in Season 4. Following the episodes, there is a mass hysteria escalating surrounding the play of the game, as the game and some of its participants are being blamed for murder in a small community of Hawkins, Indiana. While the show is a work of fiction, the paranoia against D&D that it highlights is far from it. Throughout the 1980s and early 1990s, this popular role-playing game was the subject of intense controversy and heated televised debates. The game was a stand-alone topic on numerous daytime talk shows, the sole subject of seminars, including lectures about the occult, and one of the central figures in the satanic panic crisis of the era. For those who are unfamiliar with Dungeons & Dragons, it has been a staple of science fiction and fantasy enthusiasts for nearly 50 years. This popular game was created in 1974 by the late Gary... I hope I pronounce this right. It's Gygax. It's Gygax. So, Gygax.
I don't know.
And was published by TSR. Years later, the rights were purchased by gaming giants Wizards of the Coast, a subsidiary of Hasbro, in 1997. Though the game is experiencing record successes today, there was a time when angry mobs led by religious fundamentalists wanted it banned for good. Now, you could build a strong case arguing that the first domino to fall in the D&D hysteria was the disappearance of 16-year-old James Dallas Egbert III in 1979. Egbert was a child prodigy and computer genius who, according to BBC News, was enrolled in Michigan State University. Egbert's concerned parents hired a private investigator to search for their son after he vanished from his dorm room on August 15, 1979. Believer magazine reports that Egbert and his friends enjoyed playing D&D in the steam tunnels beneath the university. The detective hired by Egbert's parents wrongfully concluded that their son had been playing the game in the steam tunnels when he disappeared. A press conference was given by the detective, William Deere, which led to national attention on the Egbert case and D&D. Many began to blame the role-playing game. But what really happened? Egbert was depressed and had left his dorm to attempt suicide in the steam tunnels. Days later, he left for Louisiana and began working in an oil field. When he realized his disappearance was getting national attention, he turned himself in. Deere met him and escorted him back to his parents. Egbert's case was referred to by the media as the steam tunnel incident. According to Deere...
So then why were they panicking after the fact?
According to Deere, Egbert revealed that he was secretly gay and chronically depressed. Sadly, Egbert attempted suicide again within a couple of years and succeeded. Enter Rona Jaffe. It says, this cosmopolitan writer-turned-novelist cranked out the 1981 novel Mazes and Monsters, which focuses on a group of college students who begin to play a role-playing game similar to Dungeons & Dragons. One of the students becomes obsessed with the game and has a psychotic break, nearly killing someone he believes is a monster from the realm he believes to be on a quest in the book. It's loosely based on this steam tunnel incident. And CBS adapted the novel for a made-for-TV screenplay and aired the production in a prime-time slot on December the 28th, 1982. And the movie featured veteran actor Murray Hamilton, and they mentioned other ones, also a 26-year-old Tom Hanks. I watched that thing.
You did?
I did.
Was it good?
It wasn't bad. Unlike Egbert in real life, of course I was a kid, who knows? Unlike Egbert in real life, the characters in the book and the movie have happy endings. The attention from the book and the film were keeping the unwarranted fears about D&D in the minds of concerned parents and religious groups.
There was nothing to be afraid of.
It would take another well-publicized suicide to marry the two groups and allow them to take on the game together. Irving Lee Pulling II was a talented and gifted student at Patrick Henry High School in Hanover County, Virginia. On June 9th, 1982, Pulling arrived home from school just days before final exams were to take place. He put a gun to his chest and pulled the trigger. A cursory search of Pulling's room by police investigators turned up a suicide note that referenced what the police would later call mystical phrases. Pulling's room was also filled with sci-fi and fantasy posters, toys, and other paraphernalia, and a TSR D&D manual. Pulling had been involved in his high school's D&D club, where a teacher had served as the dungeon master. Pulling's parents immediately concluded that the game was responsible for their son's death. In a 1983 lawsuit filed against Patrick Henry High School, it was alleged that Pulling had been playing the game at school in the hours before he took his own life. During that gaming session, another player put a curse on Pulling, causing him to have severe emotional distress. Now, those who knew Pulling from school claimed that, though intelligent, he had a lot of struggles fitting in. He had recently tried to run for class office, but was depressed that no one would be his campaign manager. He had noticed He was noticed scrawling "Life is a joke" on a blackboard in the days leading up to his death. Distraught by her son's untimely death and wanting to warn others of what she believed to be an evil influence, Irving Pulling's mother, Patricia, formed Bothered About Dungeons and Dragons, BADD, B-A-D-D, in 1983. Hang on just a second, and then you can rant. She recruited psychiatrist Thomas Radicki, the director of the National Coalition on TV Violence, to aid her in joining forces with several loosely organized anti-D&D groups led by Christian fundamentalists. Psychology Today reports that the newly formed BADD believed that D&D was a leading influence in bringing youth over to Satan.
No! No! You dumb motherfuckers! No!
Views and opinions.
Pay attention to the child's mental health. It is nothing to do with the fucking game. Period.
The rationale was
I'm sorry, but that pisses me off.
I know.
Do not do not blame anything else but the child's mental health.
Yes.
Take the child's mental health into consideration and be like, why is the child upset?
But the whole point of this is to put all this in context. It really is. Now, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that that's the whole reason for the backstory, because there were people that are your age that you've heard of it, but you didn't live it. Okay? So, anyhow. The rationale was that the role-playing is an often used tool in therapy for overcoming traumatic experiences. If this exercise can lead to changes in a patient's psychological state, then it could certainly lead to negative changes in their mental health if violence, evil, and sexual fantasies were woven into role-play. Okay, let's examine that. Where is the proof that, as far as the role-playing, is effective during psychological therapy? Now, there have been a shit ton of different therapies. It's almost like diet trends. Mm-hmm. This is the new mental health therapy. Let's go back to the primal scream therapy. Let's going back to, even now, they've got the room where you go in and break shit.
Oh, I like that. I like that one.
You have the empty chair one, which I always thought was stupid, because a lot of these we had, when I was in college and stuff, we had to do these different things, and it's like,
I've done that one. I've done.
Was it effective for you?
Hell to the fuck no.
Is it you sit there and you talk to an imaginary person, and they think that that's supposed to help? I thought that they were supposed to help people that may be talking to imaginary people.
Well, what it was supposed to, you were supposed to envision the person you were supposed to be saying these things
I get
to.
it.
In specific, the person, for example, it was a friend or a parent or something like that. You were supposed to, think that they were there in that chair.
Yes.
Listening to you. But it's no. That doesn't help.
Journaling honestly can help. That has been one of the consistent therapies, that has been going on for years. So within that, the fact that they are automatically assuming that this therapy was effective. All right, the Journal of Religion and Popular Culture adds that Pulling and her new group claimed that D&D had a demonic influence behind it and compared it to the evils of heavy metal music and the rise of neo-paganism in the United States. Pulling and her associates began a public campaign distributing their propaganda to police departments and schools nationwide. Pulling appeared on talk shows, made public appearances as a speaker, and began to petition public officials. The public war between outraged parents and Dungeons and Dragons was on. With all of the negative attention role-playing games were receiving throughout the rest of the 1980s and early 1990s, you might be inclined to think that sales would suffer. As it turns out, the old adage, "there's no such thing as bad publicity," rang true for TSR and their controversial game. TOR reports that during the aftermath of the steam tunnel incident, sales of D&D manuals quadrupled. According to CBR, despite Patricia Pooling and Bad trying their best to convince the world that playing D&D and listening to heavy metal music was a pathway to Satan himself, sales of the game continued to soar throughout the controversy. One might argue that the widespread campaign that Pooling and her cohorts engaged in only led to a widespread curiosity about the game, resulting in more manuals being sold. The popularity of D&D eventually spilled over into other facets of popular culture, inspiring video games, board games, and a whole host of props and figures you could play the original game with. Fans of the game were also introduced to countless novels based on the realms and characters, D&D comic books, posters, and eventually a feature film. It might be safe to assume that Pooling and Bad's war on D&D actually helped TSR. So that was actually a very good thing. So that's called cutting your nose off to spite your face.
Mm-hmm.
The controversy surrounding D&D had been the subject of media stories since James Egbert's disappearance in 1979. But it
should have stopped when he came back.
Yeah, but then, because never let a crisis go to waste. And we'll get into this as far as we're seeing this shit going on today with other things. Because it's fear sales, flat out. Okay, it says it should have, died there in 1979, but it was a weekly news program on CBS that vaulted the hysteria into the living rooms of everyday Americans. In 1985, the award-winning 60 Minutes show aired a special broadcast devoted to D&D. Hosted by Ed Bradley, the show opened by stating that a popular game with children was believed by some adults to cause suicide and murder.
No.
Appearing on the program were Patricia Pooling and Thomas Radicki, who claimed that the game was responsible for the deaths of 28 people. As far as I know, they didn't bring the receipts on that.
Exactly. They never do.
Bradley also interviewed a visibly frustrated Gygax who pulled no punches when talking about those parents who were behind the hysteria. He stated, quote, "This is make-believe. No one is martyred. There is no violence there. To use an analogy with another game, who is bankrupted by a game of Monopoly? Nobody is. The money isn't real. There is no link except perhaps in the mind of those people who are looking desperately for any other cause than their own failures as a parent," end quote. That was brilliant.
Exactly.
That was brilliant.
Exactly.
Yeah. When it's like, no, in a battle,
Point blank, period.
in a battle with the weaponized autisms, these people gonna lose.
Yeah.
And when you study the history surrounding the D&D controversy of the 1980s and early 90s, it's easy to see that it fits nicely with the satanic panic the United States was experiencing at the time. Organizations like BAD painted the role-playing game with a devilish brush, claiming that the game had demonic influences behind it. D&D wasn't the only target of religious groups and paranoid parents. Satanic panic created a negative focus on numerous musicians, films, books, comics, and other forms of media. But that isn't where the tragedy lay. The panic, pioneered by misguided mental health professionals, began when a psychiatrist and author, Lawrence Padzer, released Michelle Remembers, an alleged true story of satanic ritual abuse that was revealed through years of hypnotherapy. The book set off a wave of paranoia. Suddenly, there were hundreds of Michelles coming forward about their own abuse, triggering what mental health professionals would later call false memory syndrome. It's called an implanted memory. It's called MK Ultra bullshit.
Yeah.
With so many people believing that there was an underground of satanic cults abusing their kids, it's no wonder that so many people were falsely accused of ritual abuse. Doctors, teachers, preschool employees, and others were accused in a nationwide witch hunt, some convicted with zero physical evidence.
And how do y'all not see that what y'all are doing is demonic in of itself? Get your heads out of your fucking asses.
In 1995, Virginia Commonwealth University published a report stating that, quote, virtually no evidence was ever discovered to support the allegations of satanic cult activity, end quote. And it says, for 3 solid seasons, CBS aired a Dungeons and Dragons animated series that existed in the middle of all of the panic. So some people were still cashing in, even though TSR was experiencing record sales during the satanic panic years. The company decided to go into damage control mode to be on the safe side. Frank Mintzer, who helped design several manuals for the game with Gary Gygax, was put into the position of PR and spokesperson. He appeared on talk shows, both radio and TV, combating the unwarranted fears some members of the public held about D&D. His message was simple enough. Mintzer was insistent on the fact that D&D was entirely fiction. The magic and the spells cast in the game by players were not real and were merely a part of imaginative gameplay.
It was.
He discussed that role-playing games had a strong moral component to them, where the players were battling evil. To placate some religious groups, TSR removed some of the imagery and monsters from their manuals by the time the new edition of the game was released in 1989. But as the country was in the middle of the Satanic Panic era, it's arguable that distancing themselves from some perceived evil illustrations was a moot point. Never apologize, because these people, any people, it doesn't matter if it's this group or any other group, never try to appease them, because it will never, ever be enough.
Never apologize to anyone unless you are absolutely in the wrong.
Right. By the early 1990s, the United States was beginning to get a little message fatigued by the imagined dangers of D&D. Helping kick this new attitude off was the publication of The Pooling Report by avid gamer and D&D enthusiast Michael Stackpole. Stackpole noted the many errors in statistics made by Patricia Pooling and Bad throughout their public campaign against the game. The report cited instances of professional credentials that had been exaggerated or falsified their claims, including Pooling's assertions that she was an expert in any way.
Expert.
In the report, Stackpole accuses Pooling of giving false and misleading information to police officers that attended cult crime seminars, and of giving equally false and misleading information to school districts. The Pooling report also cites numerous times that Pooling claimed D&D was responsible for a crime, but offers evidence that the game really had nothing to do with it. So she couldn't even, she was circular reasoning there. The Pooling report began to erode the credibility of D&D critics like Pooling and Thomas Radicki, bringing to light that the supposed experts might not really have a grasp on what was really happening. Despite all of the controversy, the death of Gary Gygax, and the draw of the ever-growing video game industry, Dungeons & Dragons is still a force to be reckoned with, and the brand has grown exponentially since the 1980s.
And it's still going on.
Right. Now, with the Satanic Panic, what happened, you had parents who were not as involved in their children's lives as they should have been. And that happens lots.
Yeah.
And because I was metalhead, had been metalhead for quite a while, and had the big hair and the hairspray and the whole 9 yards back in the day. Mm-hmm. So when they started this bullshit about, lyrics from, I can't remember if it was Ozzy or Judas Priest, it's probably everybody was blamed. I mean, my God, when you had Dee Snider having to testify in front of Congress, these people knew nothing about these people.
And the thing is, they never actually looked at the lyrics.
They never read them. Right.
Never.
There's been a lot of stuff in Ozzy's songs. He's had songs about the fact that people don't listen to his lyrics.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that has always been this. Those of us that have listened to Ozzy for many years, he may be burnt, but he's not stupid, or whoever is writing his lyrics is not stupid.
I think he still writes his own lyrics.
And it was older people on the outside trying to look in. They were judging without finding out what the appeal was to the kids. They didn't bother to talk to anybody who was listening to this music or whatever. And again, with the fantasy, a lot of it has always... if you listen to Iron Maiden lyrics, a lot of times it's historical events. Their take on historical events.
What Dungeons and Dragons did, it gave a game for misfits who had a common ground, who have a common interest, to come together and make friends.
So did heavy metal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the fact that they wanted to think, oh, this is evil, blah, 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 because they wouldn't take the time to see how their actions are affecting their kids. They wouldn't take the time to pay attention to their kids enough to understand that their kids are struggling. That is what angers me the most. That is why I get so triggered. Because it's like, pay attention to how your kids are acting as far as their mental health. If they say that they're struggling, take them seriously.
Yeah. But that's also one of those things within that. This is why it doesn't have to be one-sided, and it shouldn't be one-sided. It should also be that the kids need to listen to the concerns of the parents. Mm-hmm. And young people have a tendency to isolate themselves, and especially if their behavior becomes different. Is that going to concern a parent? Yes, it is. So if you have proper communications within a family, and it is teens and young adults are notorious, a parent will say, what's going on? What's wrong? Nothing. And then slam the door and then, do whatever for days. Okay, in parent brain, that's cry for help.
Yeah. But that's...
And not every parent was fucking Tipper Gore. And I have cussed Tipper Gore again all day long, just like I did 30 years ago.
That's when you knock on the door and be like, honey, I understand something's wrong. When you're ready to speak about it, I'm always here for you.
Sometimes that sounds good. Sometimes it does not work. It depends on the situation. It depends on the kid. All of it.
That's true, too.
What would be wrong with the kid going, hey, Mom, I know that you're concerned. I'm okay. I'm just going through some shit. Okay?
Yeah.
So it's not...
Sometimes that's all that it takes.
It doesn't have to always be one-sided.
No.
Because the kids need to also understand the parent's concern.
Yeah.
But all that brings us to what has happened within the past few days. And I talked to oldest kid on the phone, and I would have loved for him to have explained all this stuff. It would have been like a dissertation, but it would have been a brilliant one. Because he has a degree in video game design.
Yeah.
So this is his realm, and the fact that he can create realms. And this comes from Video Games Chronicle by Andy Robinson, July 9th of 2022. The article is entitled Legal Action Threatened as... What was the gentleman's name again?
Hideo Kojima.
I could do the Kojima stuff. It was just the other one that I had problems with. Falsely linked to the Shinzo Abe assassination. And I didn't even find anything out about this until yesterday. Mm-hmm. And Kojima Productions has threatened legal action against those falsely linking game designer Hideo
Kojima.
And the Kojima I can do. It's just the first name.
Hideo Kojima.
To this week's assassination of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. On Friday, Abe was assassinated while delivering a speech for Japan's upcoming elections. A suspect was arrested at the scene and has admitted to the shooting. However, social media posts comparing the alleged assassin's appearance to Kojima led to serious instances of misinformation. On Twitter, a far-right French politician retweeted images of Kojima with the comment, "The extreme left kills." And the tweet was eventually deleted, and the politician published an apology. And the politician wrote, quote, "I naively took a joke for information. I didn't think we could make humor about the assassination of a man, but I was wrong not to check before sharing."
You didn't know you could make humor?
My apologies.
Humor!
My apologies to Kojima and to the fans of Metal Gear, end quote. So that's one of those backhanded apologies.
That sure as hell was a backhanded apology. Guess what? Humor has always been used as a coping mechanism. Humor has always been used in times of hardship to get through it.
In some countries, the false link even made the news. In Greece, a news broadcast showed images of the Metal Gear Solid design while discussing Shinzo Abe's alleged killer. An Iranian news agency is also alleged to have used images of Kojima while covering the assassination. On Friday, the incidents caused Kojima to trend on Twitter as some 35,000 tweets discussed video game developer Kojima, misidentified as the suspected shooter. While Kojima Productions did not immediately acknowledge the situation, on Saturday it published a statement claiming it would consider legal action against some cases of fake news. Quote, "Kojima Productions strongly condemns the spread of fake news and rumors that convey false information. We do not tolerate such libel and will consider taking legal action in some cases,"
Good.
end quote.
Good.
Now, the reason that I wanted to bring that into that, there have been a lot of people, and Oldest Kid had said that, now he said that Ted Cruz again had made the statement about video games bringing forth violence and all that stuff.
Bullshit.
But my concern was that this would be a reemergence of the satanic panic only against video games. I could see that happening, easily.
It's not going to be against. It's not just going to be against video games. I can tell you that. It's
If you're
really
going to
not.
speak, you're going to have to speak up a little bit louder.
It's not going to be just against video games. It's not. Because that's never how it is. It's not going to be just one thing.
Well,
It never is.
Oldest Kid,
And it's never enough.
Oldest Kid said that he doesn't believe that it will escalate like that. And I told him, I said, for those of us, that are Gen X and above, we're sort of on the outside looking in on some of this. But also those of us who did live through the satanic panic, maybe we're not as apt to listen to the same bullshit. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that this will not cause something like that to reoccur.
Sorry. But you can cut that out.
But it's one of those that if it does, this is where I am trusting the weaponized autisms, the meme makers, the shit lords, all that stuff to absolutely take care of the situation. Because if somebody is making claims about something that they have no understanding of, that's foolish.
Yep.
That's why when I went to Oldest Kid, I'm like, okay, this is what I've heard. What is the situation? You know, he told me the whole background, not only of the game designer here, but as far as the person who did admit to the assassination, which was fascinating. So, because he is an expert, and I went to him, and he explained to me.
Yes.
Rather than sitting and going, oh, this is evil. And this is what concerns me. This is why a lot of people that claim to be Christian people will shut them down because they, you know, and it's not everybody that claims to be Christian. But you still have enough factions of those people that are speaking out of ignorance.
Now, the ones who are speaking out of ignorance absolutely do need to be shut down.
But it's not just the Christians. Now,
anybody speaking out of ignorance needs to be shut down immediately.
These news organizations and stuff like that is a propaganda machine. That is intentional. And again, this is fear porn. They are counting on that TikTok, attention span. I mean, it's just like the whatever, I now support the new thing. And then 5 seconds later, that's gone. Nobody follows through because it's all about overloading somebody's brain. It's producing mental illness. Now, this is not my speculation. There is research. Go back in some of our other videos. The references are there because by shit, we will bring the receipts.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of it, if it's my opinion, my life experience, I will tell you that. Mm-hmm. Because fuck APA format. But now, like I said, I could see this. It concerned me that history was going to repeat itself again.
Yeah.
And as somebody who, very much the essence of goth, my God, I have been targeted most of my life.
You were there in the prime of goth.
Yeah.
And oh my God. People were freaking the fuck out.
I didn't even know I was goth. I didn't know there were others like. I didn't know there were others like me.
There wasn't really a name for it, and if there was, there was a name for it back then. But the thing is, it was mainly within the urban cities and such like that. So it didn't make it to these small towns. But oh my God!
If I had known that D&D was a thing.
You would have been all up in
I would have been right up in it. Exactly. And it's like, because instead of the song, because I was high, mine was because I was drunk. There's not a lot of the D&D people that were in the bar that I frequented. But I would have loved to have had something like that. That could have been a benefit to me in many ways.
You can still join D&D groups. Try to look for older, people who are around your age that do D&D groups.
At this point, now seriously, everybody goes through different points in life. And it's like, I'm quite happy with my books. I'm quite happy the interaction with the people, during the live chat there on Odyssey. Mm-hmm. Those folks are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Apart from the troll that decided to come and claim that they were whatever that they were, and I'm like, I don't think so. That's one of the few, though, so that's not too bad. But I love those folks. I love the folks that are in the communities there on BitChute and the ones that have been giving me encouraging comments, and God bless you, that has helped. The little family there on our little tiny pirate ship, our skeleton crew on YouTube, that's been going on for years. So I have a community.
Yeah.
I'm on this Truth Social thing, and I told them they insisted that I go on this. You have to go on this. And I said, I don't do social media well. I don't. Because I'm basically antisocial. So that causes a little bit of a confusion. But for those who, I don't care if it's a knitting club or whatever it is about community. It is about friendship, shared interest.
Bingo.
But make sure on some of these things, find out who the hell the experts are and if they know what the hell they're talking about. Now, that is one of the wonderful things about internet, is that you can go on there and you can check somebody's fucking credentials.
Yeah.
Hell, if somebody wants to check my credentials, I can sit there and I can, well, maybe I could somewhere find you a resume. You know, I have pictures of things. Like when I was at the academy. You know, that was traumatic. But
anything involving, they said, the stupidity of others.
Honey, that's humanity.
That triggers me. It's like, how can you be so ignorant?
Because people assume. That's what happens. They talk at people instead of talking with people. And like I said, that's both sides. You know, it's not just kids, it's also parents. You know, this is what happens with families. And there was a time, and it wasn't even within my family, it was within my grandmother's family. They used to sit down and have meals. Mm-hmm. They would talk with each other. The younger ones learned from the older ones as they were talking about their experiences and stuff. The older ones would teach the younger ones how to do things, which is how and why I started cooking at the age of 3, because I was a freak kid. But when my grandmother came in, it wasn't one of these hysteria, panic. You know, it was, she saw that I was doing, I wasn't doing anything stupid, so she stood there with me and let me do.
Yeah.
I fried a biscuit. I fried a biscuit. She had leftover biscuit dough, got out a pan, put a little oil in it or whatever, and I sat there and I fried me a biscuit. And so after that, she would teach me.
I was at a friend's house when I was in my teens. I was at Savannah's house one day. I stayed over and I decided to cook breakfast. I melted a spatula.
Oh God!
It's cause their stove was broke and it like overheated really easily, and I didn't know.
Well, right, you didn't know.
And I was like, oh God, what if it's a gift? And turns out the spatula was a gift, and I'm like, oh shit!
It'd be alright. It was a thing. But on a lot of this stuff, people need to go back to communicating with each other.
Yeah.
And everybody needs to set aside some kind of time. I don't care if it's an hour, an afternoon, whatever. Put the electronic shit down. Turn it off. Mm-hmm. Go out in the backyard, throw a football at each other or a beach ball or something. Games still exist.
Yeah.
Badminton. Go around and chase flies. As long as you're doing it with your family, get you some watermelon and spit seeds at each other. Fun stuff.
Machine gun those things. I got hiccups now.
It's all right. Those are the things that you will remember, not the 92 cat videos that you watched for days and weeks and months and missed the people that were right there in front of you.
Yeah.
Find out what Satan really does. Kill, steal, and destroy, and that includes your joy.
I don't know. There are some videos that I've seen on the internet that have certainly traumatized my ass.
Rubber Johnny's
one.
Yeah.
That's minimal trauma to one of the things I saw, and it was still on the surface web, and it traumatized my ass. It had to deal with a cat.
Question.
Had to deal with a kitten.
Question. Were those some of the things that some of the places you were not supposed to be going on the internet?
No, I was older. I was older.
I know there was a question in time about you being able to moderate yourself about internet to the point that somebody that was a professional had suggested, well, you could just turn off the internet. I said, but that punishes me.
Yeah.
So this is the position sometimes that parents are in with kids who are, going through a rebellious stage. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just as much as parents need to empathize with kids sometimes need to mature enough to where they can empathize with their parents. Yeah. Because parents, they be humans.
Yes.
Everybody is. We had good ones and bad ones and everything in between. So don't be freaking out about no shit. Understand that there is a distinction between... Now, we are in the realm of the paranormal and supernatural. You know, we have walked in the realms of mental illness and demonic possession. No shit. And there is a difference if you pay attention.
Yeah.
Don't be stupid. Do your research.
Exactly.
Don't be lazy about this stuff.
Don't be ignorant. Don't be willingly ignorant.
And like I said, God bless the weaponized autisms. I am such a huge fan. I'm a bit envious because I have the ADHDs. And that just, you know. So, but there are differences as far as how brains function, and we are learning that. You know, no, there's a lot of things that were once labeled as disabilities. That is a brain difference, and those are amazing things.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and the 4chan people, I'm a fan. I am. I don't go there because that is not my realm. But the ones that are the good guys, yes.
I have seen some shit on 4chan.
Well, that's what your brother did too. I don't go there.
Shit.
That's not my realm.
I don't talk on there, but I have seen some shit. And that's why I'm like, do not go on there.
Well, I don't because, like I said, that is your all's space. That's not my space.
MySpace. That's
Right.
Oh, I miss
A little Gen X humor.
Oh, I miss MySpace.
So
I miss MySpace.
yeah, just think, all that stuff is out there, and it never goes away ever.
MySpace.
It's
does.
floating.
MySpace does.
It was an appreciation poem to Marilyn Manson that I wrote once years ago. I did.
Did you ever send it to him?
It was on MySpace. So
I miss MySpace though. I miss MySpace because you could customize your page on there, and it was so fucking awesome.
It was. But anyhow, make your own space, but also be respectful of other people's space.
Be respectful of other people in general.
Yes, that's the whole thing about
It's not
namaste.
that hard.
Namaste. The spark of God in me recognizes and honors the spark of God in you.
Yeah.
If we remember that, people have a tendency to get along better. So, did I already do the thing?
No.
If you've had experiences with the paranormal, supernatural encounters with UFOs, aliens, cryptids, the satanic panic. If you would like to cuss,
Did you live through the satanic panic?
if you too would like to cuss, tip, or gore, if you've got local, regional, or family myths or legends, send us an email, cupofcoffeewithscream@gmail.com. And the email address will be in the description box along with the article links. Know that you're loved. Know that we survived the satanic panic.
Yeah, let's hope we don't go through a part 3.
Dim, I have seen in concert Judas Priest, Twisted Sister, Alice Cooper, Ozzy, more than once, AC/DC, Iron Maiden. The list goes on, and I am not out here worshiping the devil. Contrary to it.
I've only seen Alice Cooper, so.
Right.
I want to see Jack Off Jill. I want to see Scarling. I want to see No Doubt. I want to see Marilyn Manson and
The 80s were so great.
I'm so jealous that I had the chance to go with my friend. I had the chance to go see not Alice Cooper. I had the chance to go see Marilyn Manson and Rob Zombie in concert, and I couldn't afford it.
Pay-per-view.
If you like this video, don't forget to like, share, comment, and most of all, subscribe and click that notification button for daily notifications of our daily uploads. If you want to donate to me so I can go see Marilyn Manson and Rob Zombie in concert, that would be greatly appreciated too, but most of all, for the cat's teeth.
Yeah, it's like, screw your concert, the cat needs dental surgery. So, anyhow, thank you all very much. Know that you are loved, and we'll see you on the next cup.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.